Hello, everyone. I guess hopefully you're having a wonderful day. And today we're back again with another PWCC weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auction off this week. As always, sitting very close to the camera. So if you appreciate that, if you appreciate the videos, do leave a like. I'd appreciate that. But with that said, let's go ahead, get on into it. Probably going to be a pretty quick week this week, but that's good. Gets us all out of here a little bit quicker. Let's get to the cards though. So over here, looking at the top 100, notably the first items up here are $70, which is the lowest I've ever seen. When I went and looked at next week, though, it seems like it picks back up, so maybe this is a one-off. If this becomes a trend, we'll lower it to less than 100 cards per week, maybe 50, 75, whatever works. We'll find a way, despite whatever the selection may be at the time. Also, seeing less good cards, if you're a holder of good cards, is probably good, but if you're someone looking to get good cards, it's bad, so it depends on which side you're on. Nonetheless, let's get into it. So I'm just going to scroll unless anything really catches my eye. Of course, in this row, I like the Garrincha and, this Euro 96. Zidane's pretty cool. Keeping it moving in this row, we got a Clint Dempsey, a mid-grade Baresi, a nice 62 Didi. Moving on up, we'll see the first of many trebles. This is an Iker Casillas Gold. We'll look this one up because I already have sort of looked at some of them and I know generally what happens. This is just a crazy example, though, of sort of what I've been talking about with treble and what I'll continue to harp on. This gold PSA 7 right here out of 25, I'm not going to look at the certain numbers. I'm just going to assume every PSA 7 we see is the same one because I think it's safe. But look at this. So out of 25, Casillas goes for $86. Apparently before that, the same one a week ago went for 138. If we scroll down, a week before that, 120. If we scroll down more, a week before, or I guess a month before that, 138. A week before that sale, 126. A week before that sale, 98. So you get the point. That is just crazy. So we've seen this sell either 6 or 7 times in the last few months. Sprinkled in there is a PSA 6 that I actually missed out on because, to be fair, I don't like the treble set, but if there is a green that's really cheap, I'll grab it, right? Because I think it's desirable in that sense. It's a green out of 10. I think that's sort of cool. This PSA 6, though, went for $200 or $160 initially. That's nowhere near what I was thinking of maybe snagging it for if it went really, really cheap. Then it gets relisted, it sells again for $200, and then this is the one I missed. I probably would have bought it at this price. A PSA 6 that sold for $27. And that's just crazy to think that, something that was selling for $200 or $180 then sold for $27, and presumably all because both it didn't get shilled that time, and maybe also the people that were bidding were just tired of it at that point, which is part of what happened here. With me, I didn't bid on this one. I would have bid on the other ones if they were that close, but at this point, I just figured that's going to get shilled to a high price again. Don't even care about it. But that's a great example of sort of what's happening with serial numbered cards in general, is the way I'd put it. Serial numbered cards are great in the sense that they are rare, but also at the same time, if there's not a huge demand for it, you almost have to sort of artificially make the demand, or you don't have to, but a lot of people will see it that way, that they have to, because the demand's not coming. So this is something I warn people about, and just seeing this type of stuff doesn't make me feel good for the set. I'm even assuming people that like the set probably feel terrible seeing this type of stuff, and so even the people that like the set, they won't like to see it. The people that don't like the set, they don't like to see it. It's not really good for anyone, but it's just what happens when a set gets pumped the way treble has. And just because I'm talking down on treble doesn't mean I am against the soccer hobby. I'm actually very for it, and I'm for people making good decisions that fit what they want to do. And I don't think most people come into the soccer hobby saying, I want to chase Panini treble. I think a lot of people get pushed that way, and those sales and the relisting sort of make me think that that's the case. Moving on up, these two actually both got relisted from the last auction too, a blue and a purple of Lewandowski and Piqué respectively. Nothing really to add there. It'd be interesting to see if those get paid again, because some of the ones that get relisted sell for more than the last time they got listed, so that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, just something worthy of being thought about here under the $100. I'm glad that we could see them. We'll see another one as we get moving on up. Nothing too crazy down here. We'll keep scrolling for the most part. I thought $100 for PSA 1.5 Gazzetta Garrincha doesn't seem too bad at all. It seems like a pretty decent price. A couple odd and end Messis in this row. Above that, I did, kind of like this PSA 9 Neymar. I thought that this seemed like a decent price, but it actually was double the price of the last comp if we go over there. So this one goes for 100, last one went for 56, both on PWCC auction. I checked certs, it was not the same, so that's good. Being up, double is pretty crazy, but at the same time, it did drop beforehand. So, naturally, you'd expect a little bit of a rebound. We'll see a lot of things sort of have rebounded in the last couple months. Now, maybe that's just a phase, or maybe that becomes something we see more of going forward. Hard to really know, but we'll find out. A lot of odds and ends. I like this Romario here from 89. Football and early Romario, post-Brazil playing days. The sticker autos don't really appeal to me all too much, but I think there's still a large collector base for them. I think that collector base will dwindle over time because I just don't think people are going to care as much when Stevie G's signing sticker autos in 10 years or in 20 years. I mean, it's just not going to be as big as it is right now. I think a lot of people that came into the hobby from Europe sort of yearn for like autographs and some really rare stuff, and so I think they just get drawn to modern, which I understand, but I empathize a little bit with it. This 1988 Marco van Basten PSA 9 goes for $117. I thought that was a pretty low sale, and it seems like it. The last PSA 9 did $408 last year. Now, things are down a little bit from last year, mostly in vintage, I would say. But even in vintage, there are things that are wildly up from last year, so there's, differences in that realm. But yeah, that seemed like a good one. I mean, 88 Marco van Basten wins the tournament, has an amazing goal in that tournament, so that's a huge sticker, and one of the ones that I actually think of when I think of the 80s. So, I'm not someone that necessarily chases Panini stickers, but if I did, I think that this would be a really cool one that would be high up on the list. Even as someone that doesn't chase them drastically, if a mid or I guess a little lower grade came around for like $30 to $50, that doesn't seem too bad at all. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but keeping it moving. This foosball Sadio Mane was pretty close to the last sale. I looked it up because I was interested. Last sale was actually 76, so it was a good bit up, but the one before that was 216, so all depends where you want to balance that. I guess 140 right here too. So up from the low of 76 here at 130. Keeping it moving, some pre-war down here. We have a Dixie Dean that's relatively attainable, along with the German Zamora is the way that I've learned to class it, but basically, the German keeper of the era, going for 132 from the Grayling set. We have a Neymar, presumably not match worn, but honestly, even if it is, I don't know. Like little patches like that don't get me going too much on a card. Low number, also jersey number, so there's that. Moving above that, we have an Erling Haaland red carbon fiber. We also have this 4.5 Roberto Baggio that didn't seem to do too bad. Last PSA 4 in 2023 did 110. Prior in 2023, early in the year, it did 160. So, I mean, relative to that seems like a pretty good sale, which, again, I mentioned, vintage seemed to have peaked late 2022, maybe sort of early 2023. So, to me, that's a pretty good sale, I would say, and a relatively good sign of strength from the Baggio sector. He does have a lot, so, naturally that's going to suppress a bit, but at the same time, we don't see tons and tons of them getting auctioned, so 4.5 does a decent number. This Marcelo, I'm not sure if it got reran, but just given that every other treble I saw got reran, I'm going to assume it is. I also think I've seen this before, so, just in my head, that's where I go. We have a Wills here from 1902 of a Gio Davies and PSA 5 going for 150. We have a Green Wave Leo Messi going for 162. In this row, nothing too crazy. Paolo Maldini SGC 4 goes for 170. Seems pretty fair. I mean, we see PSA 6, 7s, 8s go in the around about 400 to 600 range, so that seems to make sense to me for what seems to be a relatively low to mid grade. Above that in this row, we have a Grinch you don't see all too often, along with a pretty lovely 5960 Saddam Rivera there. 1970 PSA 5 Johan Cruyff as well from the Vanderhoot goes for 168 in a PSA 5. This is pretty fair price, near what the last comps were going for, and I think back before soccer was even really a thing pre-boom, this was like a $50, $60 card. In my opinion, I think this looks really, really nice. Now, high grades of the year before Vanderhoot, or I guess 2 years before, depending on how you want to look at it, that Vanderhoot has been coming out more in high grades, so that's going to affect this as well. But I really like the look of this one, a bit more of the Ajax feel compared to the earlier one where you just kind of have him in a jumpsuit, it looks like. So above that, we have an OMB Jalma Santos from 1957 that goes for 180. Did have this pulled up. Last sale was 120. One before that was 252 in 2022. So I guess both those sales were in 2022. This one's smack dab in between 2 years later. So seems like that is just holding nice and steady. I have no clue about this Alberto Spencer from 1966, but to me, the first thing that stuck out was this looks like PMG before that was even possibly being thought about. So that was pretty cool, at least just to see something like this. In terms of where it stands in collecting lore, I have no clue. But to me, just visually, that was sort of striking and something worth noting, I thought. Jude Bellingham out of 50 Obsidian. SGC 9 goes for 192. I actually thought that this, I never even think that this type of stuff seems cheap, but that seems kind of cheap. We'll talk more about why that might be later, but $200 for an out of 50 Jude rookie doesn't seem terrible. I also sort of have a soft spot for Obsidian. The floods are much better than, the regular parallels, but I do like the regular parallels too. I think they're nice, and I like the all black look. It adds something a little different. Above that, don't have too much to add in this row. Some pre-war Italian items, along with a Pele from 62. Above that, we have a Messi from 2014 Prism, along with the 67 Pele PSA 1 going for $228. I did look this one up just because I was interested. I never really look up this type of stuff, but I think it's worth doing every now and then. A blue Obsidian Etch does seem kind of cool too for Pedri, out of 30, somewhat a color match. PSA 10, all that good stuff. Basically, this goes for $232. Last sale was $200, so up from there, which again, even someone like Pedri that really hasn't done much, up from the last sale. Going back even further, though, I guess somehow this sold at fixed price for $600, allegedly. I doubt it. That's probably just someone trying to build a fixed price comp before they went and sold it, if I had to imagine. And then if you look before that, I mean, back in the day, yeah, there were some sales like $400, $800 for a Raw, $560 for a BGS 95. I mean, just in general, really, really far down. Some of those Raw comps were basically pricing this out as like a $1,000+ card. Now it's a $200 card. Of course, Pedri's career hasn't really gone the right way, but that happens with most prospects. That's typically how it goes. Above that, PSA 5 Messi goes for $240. Seems like a pretty good price. The Zara next to it I actually looked up because you don't see a lot of Ting Halls in the PWCC auctions or just in general, and so to see them on auction is fun. The Zara, I actually found the comp of it raw. As far as I could tell, I mean, they look exactly the same. This one goes for, what is that, $252 in a PSA 1.5, and raw it went for $122 a couple years back, so a nice little profit there if you're the person that bought that and submitted that. Baggio PSA 9 with the sticker auto, all on the sticker, which is good. Not something I think you have to really worry about with him, but nonetheless, last comps were $325, $450, and $372 if we go back the last couple of years, so that seems to be as low as it's gotten. Personally, I think I'm coming around a bit on sticker autos. I think people almost don't even care about them, which to me means they should be worth something. Now, I'm not going to put a big premium on them, but I do like it, especially in this sort of a set, like at Prism 2014. I have like 5 or 10 autos in the set. I think it's a decent set if you're going to go for a Prism or just an auto set with sticker autos in general. Above that, PSA 6 goes for $276. We have a Vecchi here, a defender with the red name, going for $276 in SGC 1. We have a Duncan Edwards PSA 8 for $300. In this row, a couple Italian pre-wars and a PSA 2 and a PSA 4 going for $288 and $300 respectively, with a DeStefano Bruguera smack dab in between. Did some deep diving on Toto just to see what you could find, and yeah, I mean, here's the uncut, but the sheet that you could cut it from, going for €170. There's other ones where you can find action shots. There's this one for $213, so you can find it somewhat easily, I would say. I mean, being able to find a few of them within a year is moderately easy when we talk about vintage, but at the same time, not going to be all that cheap, as you can tell. So $300 there. Row above that's a weird one. We have a 2 out of 2 Pepe and Pulisic sticker auto. I actually thought, I mean, again, I think that generally all of this type of stuff is expensive relative to what it should be. But relative to what other things are, I don't think that this is that expensive. I see people pay this money for random USMNT cards all the time, and this seems kind of cool to me, but at the same time, this is my wheelhouse for collecting, so, I'm not going to be the one bidding it up. But next to we have a Del Piero auto on card going for $324. While I do believe that this Del Piero should be worth more than Pulisic Pepe, I'm not making that argument. I do also think that this is just kind of a bit expensive. I've seen a Xavi Monday Chromo on eBay go for like $60, and to be fair, I think Xavi's a better player than Del Piero. Now, collectability, I'm not sure, but I mean, this just seems pretty expensive for a card that can be made and made again. I don't believe this is pack release. Sometimes there are pack released autos from the 90s, but yeah, this one, for no reason, I am to believe that it is, so I'm just going to say it isn't. Nonetheless, that goes for $324 along with a Gazzetta team photo from the Gazzetta album that you cut out. So, above that, some more modern, along with an Italian 1930s issue smack dab in between. This is the Orsi of the same set that we were seeing a bit of earlier. The modern, I don't really have too much to say. Sticker auto, colored Jude, gonna pull numbers. That's just how it is. This 75 Oleg Blokhin football PSA 6 was an interesting one. At first, I was like, this is a really high sale, and then I also noticed this yellow border is not something I recognized from before. So I went back and looked at sales, and basically, yeah, I mean, all the other ones are Panini Calciatore. This is Panini Football. And so basically, I'm guessing it's football, not football, but I'm just sort of accustomed to it at this point. Nonetheless, yeah, you could barely find any of the yellow. So I'm to assume that that's a pretty hard version to find. This is defined as a 76 football, and 76 France is on the slab, while this is 75, 76. So I'm not sure if they're the same season. They use the same photo, so I'd imagine they are. But if anyone has any info, would love to have that shot in a comment down below if you could. We have a Beckenbauer sticker auto from Prism going for $430. I really like the look of that one. I think it's just the white and black and pretty simple colors all around, but pop one of 12.5 higher. So then we have a Messi PSA 8 from 2004. This is the white version of the rookie card from the team set. So this one actually seems relatively cheap, but we'll see the other ones seem relatively high. So net, I think it balances out. Typically, most of these team sets in an 8 go for around 500. That's at least what they do in my head and what I sort of envision them every single time we do these auctions. Reason I say that is because this PSA 7 went for 480, which to me seems just a smidge high, especially when you got this 8 back here. Now, if you look at pop counts, I think that these typically grade about a grade higher. So I think, almost having a grade sort of deduction in price makes sense. But it hasn't really been something we've been seeing, at least until this auction. Next to it, we have a PSA 4 Piola from circa 1938 going for $516. This Panini sticker auto Maradona goes for $540. I actually kind of like it in the Napoli kit. It's kind of cool, despite being sticker and off sticker and all that jazz. Here, this Lewandowski goes again. I think we've seen this go before. Yeah, I looked it up. Yeah, I mean, in November went for $990, in December went for $550, in February goes for $550 basically again, so we'll see if it actually sold that time or not. This PSA 8 was sort of the other end of the spectrum where it goes for $660. Now this is a Campy O, so there's typically a little premium placed on that, but not much, so maybe that explains. I'm not sure. It's also newly slabbed, so that might help. Next to it, we have an Americana Zizinho, PSA 1, early and pretty rare. Zizinho to find, pop 1 of 2, none higher, goes for $660. In this row, take your pick, couple French players along with a Pele. So we have a 2022 1 of 1 Kolo Muani PSA 10 that goes for $750, along with a Pele sticker auto from the 2018 Prism and a 2016 Panini Foot Mbappe that goes for $840 in a PSA 9. I actually looked that up because I was interested. The Kolo Muani doesn't do much for me, and that Pele seems relatively fair. I do think it's a nice looking Pele, though, I won't lie. As far as the Mbappe, though, up a good bit. I mean, if you look, especially lately, right, in December, they got pretty rough in the $550 range for a PSA 9. And yeah, it's stepped right back up, goes for $840. A lot of that presumably sort of tied to the Real Madrid rumors sort of being re-sparked and how he's going to go there. And so that's going to draw in some more people, some more eyes. And I think that makes sense. Above that, couple Peles. So we have a PSA 2 Vav with him and Vava from the 1958 set. We have an $870 price point on that, which seems pretty low. We saw a PSA 1, at least the one that I bought in Golden Auction. Happy to have gotten it. Went for a little over $500. So a PSA 2 for nearly $9 makes sense to me. It's pretty good color too, and these are typically off-center, so finding one off-center is going to basically be the norm and not something I'd be too, demoralized by. Also interesting to see this authentic Pele with evidence of trimming going for nearly $1,000. Seemed like a kind of high price to me. I went and looked at comps, and it sort of seems high. I mean, this was a PSA authentic altered that went for $1,350 apparently, but you also see a PSA 3 that apparently went on auction for $1,600. Now the surface doesn't look good, but I mean, technically, if we're going by PSA grade, I mean, a PSA 3 is much better than evidence of trimming, one would think. But comps are kind of all over the place. I mean, this was $923. I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, there are some really high, some really low, but that seems pretty high, at least for an evidence of trimming copy, right? 2019 Topps Chrome UCL Footballer Flash Orange Refractor Holland goes for $900. Rookie year, but, people don't tend to care as much about inserts in the rookie year, but maybe that changes. I don't know. I've never really seen anyone talk about that card, to be honest. Moving above that, we have a 64 Carlos Alberto. I'm going to say rookie. I might be wrong on that, but this set sort of stuck out in my mind because there are a couple notable rookies in it. This was also a really high price. Pele one recently went for like $2,000, and so if you're doing half of what the Pele does in this set, I assume it's very important for you, is the way I'd put it. So this goes for $1,020, pop 1 of 1, just 2 higher. This BGS 9.5 goes for $1,500 basically. Seems fair. I mean, we've seen PSA 10s go for like $3,000 ish 4,000 sometimes on PWCC, and given current multipliers, that's sort of where that works out to. This also, I don't really know exactly on these how they grade centering. I always assumed that basically the left edge by this Campione badge should be as far away from this border as the top is from its border. This doesn't look very centered, doesn't look 9.5 centered, but I also don't know if many of these companies even look at the centering on these cards, if I'm going to be honest, at least for cards like this where it's not that apparent. Next, we have a PSA 10 Galactic Erling Haaland from 22-23 Revolution. Look back, and there was only really one sale to go off of. That was a best offer last year for $2,200. So if you're going, 10-15% lower than the last best offer price on an auction, to me that's a win. So that seems like a pretty good price, especially in an Erling Haaland state where nothing's really going all that crazy for him. We'll talk about that right now with these Topps Chromes. This is the graph for the Topps Chromes. Not very good. So last year, basically down 40%, and even within there, you sort of see this high price that it goes to. That's baked in with the whole scoring record and everything there. So of course, from that, it's going to go down a good bit, and it's basically cut in half from the highs. But if you're looking at it from the other angle, this seems like a relatively decent time. He's been injured, Man City not leading the league at the moment, so could be a good spot. We have a 1920 Balanseri here, SGC3. Took a look back, and I was sort of expecting this, but we're basically seeing, sort of the halving in price that happens when new things come to market, right? So this Balanseri in a SGC2 with the black name, I'm going to assume the black name's rarer since the other two are the reds, and this is the only black, but let's just say people don't care that much. I'm going to assume. Maybe they do, and I'm just out of the loop. But this black SGC2 goes for nearly 5,000 when a red 1 after it does under 1,000, and then a red 3 does 2,000. So to me, it seems like these are dropping a good bit, but also that's sort of what happens whenever one comes out, lures the rest out, and then the rest sort of race to the bottom, and then typically once that's flushed itself out, you sort of climb back up. But I think that's what we're seeing there. Goes for 2,000, still a respectable number in soccer, surely. And that takes us to the top 3. So we have a treble purple Messi going for 2,600 right there. Comparing to raw comps, last one did 1,200, so a good premium over that for the grade. Again, assuming this gets paid, I feel like with treble now, I can't even assume they get paid, but we'll look. I mean, when you go back and look at sales, I think that's an all-time high price for this card. Actually, there's a PSA 9 here on best offer that sold for a smidge higher. Then next to we have a 1925 Dixie Dean footballing photos here from DC Thompson, $37.20 for PSA 1.5, which I looked back at last comps and seems, relatively in line. SGC 3 did $7,500 on fixed price, so half the price for half the grade. Seems fair. Looking back, there was a PSA 3 back here that did 5,000, so compared to that, it doesn't seem good, but I feel like there was something sort of murky around this one. I could be wrong. If people know, do feel free. I feel like there was maybe fake speculation, or maybe I'm totally wrong on that, but sort of what makes me think that as well is that there was a PSA 2 miscut that did essentially the same price a month or two prior. So to me, it seems weird that this one would go for the same as this one if there wasn't some stuff going on with it. So, important to, I guess, take into account everything when you look at these. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but just seems like something's a little off there. Nonetheless, a price point that seems within the range and a card that is pretty hard to find. I mean, it's doable, as you can tell. We saw one last year, one the year before, and 2 this year already, so it's doable, but at a pretty high price. And then we end off the auction with this 10 out, well, it's an out of 10 Messi, it's 6 out of 10, and a PSA 10 goes for $4,200 for the 2020 Topps Inception. Yeah, I mean, looked up this price and basically, feels like a really, really high price to me. So you got this 2020 Inception. I know it's Barca, I know. Goes for $4,200. This BGS 9 the year after that goes for $300. So as you can tell, a big premium placed on that one. Looking back at comps for this one, there's really nothing all too much you can go off of. There's this raw comp for $2,000. There's an autograph comp that's a PSA 10 that went for $5,000. This was closer to release though, so maybe since then people have had much more fondness for it. But all in all, it doesn't seem like these have really come down at all. So it seems like a good price there. I guess if you're selling, if you're buying, it's still a pretty hefty price, and a card that looks really good. I'll give it that. 2020 Inception lead in the list, which is probably not what I had on the bingo card coming into the week, but always something fun to take a look at. I will say this week was really, really light on the top end. Some interesting storylines in the middle end, probably not for good reasons, but you got to talk about it nonetheless. Going to next week, we'll sort of see what we got. Always like to take a quick spin through here just to see. So starting off, we have a 2004 SP Authentic Sign of the Times Ronaldo. Sign of the Times, fun one. This is also 2004. It says it's technically a 2003-2004 year set range that you should put on there, but PSA, for some reason, in some cases they put the year, in some cases they just put the season. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me either way. Early Ronaldo, you can also see very, very sloppy Ronaldo back then, but yeah, I guess there's some luster in that. SGC3 Diego Maradona, fun one. 62 Pele. We have a Vecchi Grinch we haven't seen in a while. We have this Pele, which I don't think I've ever seen. That is really, really vibrant there. That's a fun one. Moving down, Galactic Messi, there's also this cool Ronaldo. This isn't a rookie. This is 95-96 PSA 8. There's also a rookie PSA 5 down here. Some Eminence, some nice on-cards. These actually got reran, both of these. There was 3 that auctioned off either last week or a week ago, and we're seeing 2 of them back again, so that's something of note. PSA 6 Pele, BVG 7 Yashin next week, so a lot of good stuff. Not too top-heavy, but again, I think that's sort of matching what we've been seeing. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, of course, make sure to leave a like. As always, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. Also, leave your thoughts and comments down below, whether you like something I said about something, you didn't like what I said, or just some cards you thought were deals or steals along the way. Would love to hear it in a comment down below. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.